paying attention at all.
You still pulled it off all right.
Like, wow, that countdown went really fast. Welcome to Movie Boners, everyone.
What's up, everyone?
I didn't shake it up, but in my excitement and speed of opening it as quickly as possible, I did spill some drops. So
okay.
You should be happy about that, I'm sure.
I was hoping for a bigger, but that's okay.
Yeah. I sort of kind of shook it before we started, and Dustin got his hopes up. Welcome to Movie Boners. Did I say that already? I don't know. What beer are you drinking today?
All right. Well, I went more for the look of the can because I was like, ooh, that looks like straight color scheme from the movie. That's cool. And I guess it kind of works, but not really. But except that it's a California beer and the movie takes place in California. So
okay, getting warmer.
There you go. That's pretty much as warm as we're going to go. All right. I am drinking Mind Haze IPA. From Firestone Walker. Not too bad. Not too bad.
I've had that a few times. It's good stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, mine isn't very related at all. I couldn't find any fog-related beers at the store, so I went weather adjacent, and it's appropriate because it actually matches the weather here right now, which is Snow Camp from the Horse and Dragon Brewing Company, and it's a robust porter, better than all the other porters, and always very good.
All right.
Doesn't really count. I'm not going to take any credit for that.
Oh. Like at all, there's no camp and there's no snow in the fog. At least I have like the weird, like glowy blue.
It is glowy and kind of cloudy a little bit. Yeah.
But yeah, kind of difficult.
Is it a hazy IPA? Hazy and foggy or kind of things?
It's just haze.
Okay. I think it might be hazy.
It literally doesn't. Oh yeah, it's hazy. It's hazy.
Yeah, that counts as foggy.
Yeah, we'll go with that.
All right.
It was really hard to try and find like ghost pirates or.
Not a lot of leprosy themed beers out there. I don't think.
No green wormy face kind of pictures on cans. So
it's an untapped market, I think.
Apparently.
Okay, enough goofing around, a lot to get through. I wanted to say off the top, housekeeping stuff. We've got a lot of guest spots coming up. We've already had released the Dune Part 2 spoiler cast with Film versus Film. We joined him and spoiled all of Dune Part 2. So if you haven't seen that yet or heard that episode yet, go and check it out. We have a couple more coming up as well, so make sure you're tapped into Instagram and YouTube, movieboners.com. I always put all of our guest episodes as well at movieboners.com, link to them there. And I think that's about it. That's all of the normal stuff there. Other than, what new things have you seen lately?
All right. Well, I watched a few. I decided to have a couple lazy days. One lazy day, and was like, you know what? I'm just going to go and just watch a bunch of new shit. And it was all super mediocre. But
okay.
Except one thing, but we'll get to that.
Mediocre's not bad.
So I watched a movie called The Stranger. It's on Netflix. It's from 2022.
Okay.
With Joel Edgerton. I
love Joel Edgerton.
Yeah, it's an Australian movie based on an actual missing persons case.
I've seen the cover for this. Yeah.
Yeah, it was interesting. The acting's really well done. The story, of all the new shit that I watched, I probably enjoyed this one the most because I like the slow pace of it. I like the patience of it, and just kind of letting you, the viewer, just kind of like, for a little while, you're kind of lost and just trying to figure out what is the point of all this. But all of a sudden, when it's all there, you're kind of like, oh fuck, which is funny to say because it's not a very like thrill ride movie. It's very slow and it's very patient. But yeah, that one wasn't too bad.
I was
Um,
excited to see Sean Harris in another thing.
yeah,
He's Solomon Lane in Mission Impossible Fallout and Rogue Nation. He's
he's excellent.
intriguing.
Yeah, and those two together are awesome. So, and it was kind of
I
fun
was
to hear everyone's like Australian accents full display. So,
yeah.
um, and then I watched a movie with Ben Affleck. It was one that came out that no one heard of last year called Hypnotic. It was him and Robert
Ugh,
Rodriguez. Um, that was
that movie came and went. I remember people saying it sucked, and it was like stop talking about it
it.
the weekend that
I
it came out.
I saw like one promo last year for it. It came out, and I was like, it's Ben Affleck and Robert Rodriguez. Like, I like these guys. I bet it
Hmm.
won't be great, but it might be entertaining. And it's kind of entertaining, but it's also like, okay, I guess this is a movie that got made.
Yeah.
It's the movie takes place here in Austin,
Okay.
and there was one glaring thing in it, two glaring things in it that I was like, ooh, maybe this is why it didn't do so well, especially down here in Austin.
Hmm.
I was like, number two, I'm going to put them in order. Number two,
Okay.
they wear coats in the middle of the day during like springtime, summertime down here. You don't do that because we
Yeah.
cook. It's so fucking hot and no one's sweaty in it. And it's like, no.
Yeah.
Reality checks that you are drowning in sweat. It just, you walk out of your front door and you're wet. That's how it goes down here. But
Yeah.
the number one thing that I was like, well, this isn't realistic at all, which was funny about a movie, to say that about a movie about people that control minds. There's no traffic in Austin. Like, the roads were all
Mm.
clear and free flowing. I was like, no. That is horseshit,
No way,
my
Jose.
friends.
Yeah.
But it was okay. It wasn't like the worst thing I've ever seen. You could tell it was we're bored. We're gonna get paid to make this thing, so we'll do it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
All right. Fair enough.
And then I watched one with Mel Gibson called On the Line. He plays a radio DJ, like a shock DJ kind of host, late night show, who takes a call from a psychopath at one point,
Okay.
who starts threatening his family and wants to put him on like this, how are you going to save your family but stay on the line with me kind of
Yeah.
thing. And I was really excited to watch it because it's like low budget, it's unknown. I was like, this could be really cool. And it was pretty good, but I will say it's been a while since I've gotten that mad at a movie's writing. This one really takes a weird, horrible turn that was just
Uh-huh.
like, even for you, Mel, this was bad. I was so mad at this movie.
I was just looking at the writer and director's IMDb credits while you were talking,
Yeah,
and he hasn't made a lot. On the Line has a 5.4 on IMDb.
that's generous.
His two prior features have a 3.6, and what was the other one? I scrolled away from it. 3.7. So it's an improvement for him.
Those are more accurate though to how I felt at the end of On the Line. So
Wow.
if you find that one, you don't need to worry about watching that one.
Okay, good to know.
And then, so at the time of recording, this is pretty fresh. I did sit down and watched Quiet on the Set, the new documentary on Nickelodeon about Dan Schneider and the horrible things going on his sets at Nickelodeon. That was heartbreaking.
It'll ruin your childhood.
That was a rough one to watch. It's like, what, 4 or 5 episodes, and by the time it ended, I was just like, there's so many people that I'm mad at and mad for, but I feel like it's a weird position. It leaves you feeling just kind of in a weird limbo. It was rough. It was rough to watch. It was very rough. Yeah. So
I've seen a lot of people posting about it. I have not seen it yet, but I'm definitely interested because I expect that you walk away from it just feeling gross because there
yep.
hasn't been a huge like revival or revolution in Nickelodeon or Hollywood or
Right.
anything. Nobody's really like taken accountability and cleaned up anything. And it's not just one guy. I know Dan
No,
Snyder
like
was a terrible person, but he could only operate in that environment for as long
there
as he
is
did with the help and support of a bunch of other
yeah,
people.
it focuses on him and his sets, and then it focuses on a couple other extra horrific things that they talk about. But I was so infuriated. Like, where the
Mm-hmm.
fuck were the executives? Where are these people?
Mm-hmm.
And they do say at one point, like, every episode, every joke, everything was approved by all of the like the head people. Parents were always on set, and my thought really came down to like, shame on every single one of you adults that
Mm-hmm.
thought this was okay, thought it was
Mm-hmm.
funny, thought it was a good thing for your 13-year-old child to
Yeah.
be a part of this stuff. Which was that's where it gets really weird, is because like it focuses a lot on the late 2000s era, and I
Yeah.
was out of the Nicola. Our generation had
Yeah.
moved on from that part. Um, the jokes got real, like you're not even trying to
Like
be
aired on
subtle.
TV
Yeah, and
jokes,
they were
not like
aired. They
behind the
showed
scenes.
clips, like a couple of the clips they showed. I'm still just like, they sear in your head, and you're like, this is
Mm-hmm.
horrible. Who
Mm-hmm.
who had this thought to like, oh, this will be great to do? It's horror. Like
Yeah. This is quality children's
it
programming.
just, I found myself in a place really just kind of trying to figure out like, how has no one in that industry really stepped up to protect children in the
Mm-hmm.
industry? I feel like
Well, Corey Feldman's tried. I think a few people have tried and have just been completely shut down.
right, and it's a shame that they're being like, that there should be any kind of uh contention to that. Like,
Yeah.
they're kids.
Yeah.
Like, have the trope is a child star is probably going to crash and burn as soon as they start like
Yeah.
aging out of the child stardom time.
Burn out and turn to drugs
Yeah.
and become
And
Amanda Bynes.
if you don't want that to happen, why don't we set kids up in a, if you're going to have kids in films or in all this stuff, then maybe we should work on making
Yeah.
sure they're set up for success and safety
Yeah.
being priority. Yeah, it was very disheartening, very heartbreaking, very rough to watch.
I'm curious to watch it as a parent because I obviously Nickelodeon and everybody involved deserves a lot of the blame, but the parents as well
I
seem like
was
they're
mad at
just
the parents too. Like I
allowing
was,
a lot of stuff so that their kids get a paycheck or they
yeah,
get a
I
paycheck.
was so mad at every adult except one. There's one
Okay.
adult that I was like, this is the only dude who like actively tried to protect a child, and then he was actively forced out of the picture. So
Figures, yeah.
that's like, come on.
Yeah.
I would say I encourage people. I think people should watch it.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't feel it ruined my childhood. Like, I still find all that, like the old school, all that, like there
Mm-hmm.
are aspects of it that I still very much enjoy and still laugh at. But
Mm-hmm.
it definitely makes you kind of like, oh yeah, what we see on the camera is so
Yeah.
uh, shallow.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
there's so much more. So,
Yeah. Taints things like it's like when you see the Weinstein Company nowadays. You're
yeah,
like,
you're kind of like, ooh, bad form.
yeah, not great.
So that was, yeah. And then on a very left hand turn into a more positive light, cheesy
Mm-hmm.
light. Um, I know you and I definitely had to get Roadhouse, the remake, watch. So
Didn't you watch that Lindsay Lohan thing?
oh shit, that's right. I did watch Lindsay Lohan's new movie.
I was gonna say, speaking of child stars who took a
I forgot to
turn
write
into
it down.
darkness.
I forgot to write it down. Sorry. I did watch Irish Wish, Lindsay Lohan's new Netflix original movie. I wasn't gonna pass it up because you and I are suckers for her Christmas movie that she
was
made
an
like
incredible
a
experience.
year or two ago or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And we loved it because of how bad it was. It was so wonderfully terrible. And so I was super high hopes for the same thing with this. Like, let's make, like, come on, this should be her lane because this is great.
Yeah.
And it does try to be as cute. It does try to do some of the same things, but it just doesn't quite get there.
Do they push it too far? Like they got that people latched on to the weirdness and so they try too hard to be weird, or is it still as natural as the first one?
No, it just it felt, so they bring on like an actual like magic element to it,
Okay.
which I felt was kind of like, okay, this could still work, but it just like, it's not as cute. It wasn't bad, but it's just not as cute.
All right.
Now I say that I have to give myself a little like asterisk, right? Like, okay, here's a caveat though, because I almost think that the overwhelming cuteness of, I don't even remember the name of the Christmas movie, is the fact that it's a Christmas movie. So I think the fact that it's all Christmassy and already kind of magical in that sense lends so much to that one, whereas Irish Wish was like just a straight Hallmark film that happened to have some magic and Lindsay Lohan in it. But I didn't hate it. It wasn't horrible. I thought it was
called Falling for Christmas.
Falling for Christmas. I will say I watched Irish Wish right after I watched On the Line, and I liked Irish Wish way more than I liked On the Line.
Okay.
So there you go.
Compare them relatively. Yeah. That makes sense.
There you go. I think that.
But yes, now we can. Oh wait, I haven't told you my
tell
thing.
Me your stuff, and then
I only have one. I only have one thing in addition to the other things we're going to talk about. I watched Ricky Stanicky.
Oh,
the Zac Efron and John Cena joint, and it was pretty fun. It's I think Peter Farley, one of the Farleys, not both, but one of the Farleys did it, and you can tell there's some raunchy humor in it. John Cena carries that movie though. He is definitely the main reason that it works, and him like leaning heavily into this Ricky Stanicky character. It was a fun time. It's not like, it's weird to have Zac Efron do it, like have it come out right after the Iron Clock, because he's like up here with his like acting chops and stuff, and now he's back to like normal generic comedy kind of stuff. But it was a decently fun time. I enjoyed it well enough, and it made me wonder when they filmed it, because he's not as huge as he is in the Iron Claw.
Really? Okay.
So maybe it was before, maybe it's after, and he's just like slimmed down, but I don't know.
All right.
But it was fun. It was a funny time. I would, I think it's streamable for sure. I would not probably spend money in the theater to see it if it's even still out.
Fair enough.
And then another new thing that we both were asked to watch. We got contacted about a movie that came out. It's coming out kind of worldwide this year. It's already been out in the US and the UK and a bunch of kind of Western countries. It's coming out early in Belgium and Germany soon, and Taiwan soon. There's a movie called The Last Deal, written and directed by Jonathan Salemi, and stars Sala Baker, who's been in The Killer. He was the brute in The Killer. And then Anthony Molinari, who's, you mostly know him, 8 episodes of Barry. And it's the most, I guess you would say, professional movie that we've been asked to watch and review. Most of them have been, we've only done a couple, but they've been like extremely independent, and we haven't had to go through a PR agency. We're moving up in the world, I guess.
Look at us go!
And the timing of it was funny because we had just like put out our episode on Brazil, and we were kind of very much against the man and the and regulations of all these industries and the controlling of information and red tape and all this stuff. And then we get this email, and they're like, "Hey, you want to watch this movie called The Last Deal? We filmed it entirely without permits, guerrilla style, and it's like the biggest guerrilla style movie in the last 2 decades or something." And we're like, "Hell yeah, that sounds great. Let's check it out." And so I didn't know what to expect. They were like, "We didn't get any permits. We filmed it out of the back of a Kia and all this stuff." I was like, "That sounds great." So we watched The Last Deal. I think you can find it on Stars. If you haven't, but it's in a bunch of places. Check it out. What did you think of The Last Deal?
Um, Going into it, I had no expectation because I didn't know anything about it. I didn't look it up. I didn't really
Right.
do. You just kind of like, hey, we got to watch this one. And I was like, okay, click the link and here we go.
Yeah. See what this is.
I didn't mind it. It was I want to rewatch it again. I've been meaning to because I've kind of noticed for crime thriller movies, drug dealing movies and stuff, I kind of need to be kind of in the mood for like a crime thriller. So the first time
Yeah.
I watched it, I was like, it's not bad. I just wasn't like there. And maybe this is one of those times I wish I would have looked it up and read it and like learned about it. But it wasn't bad by any means. It was interesting. I'm not gonna. I kind of expected the guerrilla filmmaking style to be a little more prominent, but I felt like
Yeah.
this is pretty clean for being guerrilla. Like this is. I don't know what I was expecting. Probably
Yeah.
something stupid.
I was expecting, I don't know what I was expecting either. I was kind of imagining in my mind that something would get cut short and they'd have to like run off or something. And I'm very curious how the actual filming went. But the movie itself looks great, is shot and edited everything extremely well. I think it looks brilliant.
It's very
And
clean. Like
yeah, very clean. It did, the guerrilla element, knowing that going into it, it did, I think, engage me a little more
yeah,
because there were times I'd be like, hey, they're walking down the street. They definitely didn't get permission for this. Maybe there'll be like some random person in the background or something. And I don't know. It definitely engaged me in a different kind of way, and that was interesting. But for the most part, yeah, I thought the movie itself was very interesting, and certainly it's a lot better than the 5.5 on IMDb would have you believe. I think they said they were review bombed by a pirate or something. It's a good movie, definitely more of a crime thriller. There's not much action, especially in the first portion of it. I guess I should say what it's about. So it's about around, is it like 2015, 2017, somewhere around there, when California legalized weed. The actual OG marijuana dealers
yeah.
had to adapt to becoming legit, and it's a weird thing that I think it was an interesting choice to not get permits to do any filming and not do any of the red tape stuff, because I think it is on theme with the movie, which is when the government shows up and says, we're going to help, we're going to make things legal, we're going to do all this stuff. And then what you don't see, what you should see more of, is all of the people that get screwed over by that process.
Right.
Not that I'm a giant fan for black market marijuana dealers, and drug dealers and Mexican cartels and all of the stuff. But that's a thing that happens for sure. And it shows definitely an interesting side of it, as he's trying to get one huge score to get his business to actually, because he's kind of barely limping along, about to go under. He can't get his like official allowed red tape license or whatever to be a dealer.
I will say every character in like the history of crime, thriller, action, drama movies, right? Every time a character says one last score, one last job. Like, well, obviously all shit's gonna hit the fan. Like this is I don't know what's a more used or more, what's the word, cliche trope for a genre, like
Yeah.
characters in horror films running upstairs when they should be just running out the front door, or
Yeah.
one last score and my life will be, changed forever. It'll all be work out. It's all going to work out. We're going to be awesome. I don't know. I kind of feel like the one last score has been used more
Yeah.
than
Yeah. I
the
think you're
terrible
right.
decision making in a horror film. I know people are going to be like, "Oh no," but seriously, go watch
Mhm.
any movie that deals with robbery, crime, drugs,
Mhm.
all of it. Your main antagonist at one point is going to say, "It's one last job, and then I'm out."
Yep. That's the only way out of the life.
And
One
then
last
it's
score.
all shit rolls, just blows up. Yeah, I thought it was interesting. For not having permits and stuff, I was like, man, they were able to like get into some places, have some props in it that work
Yeah.
really well. The stuff with the
That's what the production value is like
yeah,
sky high. Like they were in nice buildings and all. Like that's definitely not just like this
flying
guy's
around in the
house or
plane. That's
yeah,
my
this
big
guy's soundstage. Yeah.
yeah. How did you guys fly the plane guerrilla style? Because I feel like that is another level of illegal. But that, yeah.
Yeah. It'd be interesting to ask questions of the filmmakers for sure.
But no, I thought it was fine. I want to rewatch it again and just kind of like make sure I'm in a kind of a different headspace to watch that kind of
Mhm.
movie. Because watching drug crime films, you definitely kind of, at least for me, need to be like
Mhm.
kind of in a certain mood or in that kind of headspace. Um, Otherwise, it just seems to like not quite work for me. But that's not on the film. I thought it was kind of funny. I did chuckle to myself thinking like, man, this is like professional. Jake and I
Yeah.
aren't used to being asked to watch professional. This is kind of okay, cool.
Yeah, I was like, this is a real ass movie. It looks really good. Yeah, it looks really good. Acting is all very, very good. And it's I mean, it's a little slow. There's not like
Mhm.
action in the first half or first two thirds even really. But you're engaged and interested in all the characters. Performances are all very, very good. And then the end segment, it does, get a little wild and interesting and violent, and it's cool. I liked it for sure.
Yeah. So good on you guys. It was
Yeah.
we enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was great. And then before we get into the episode, one last thing, movie news. We never do movie news, but I have a
True,
little
we don't.
juicy piece of movie news. I need to know what you think about it.
Ooh, it's
It has
juicy.
it's juicy. It has to do with a movie that you talk about on the podcast all the time and have seen so many times, I'm sure. How do you feel about Happy Gilmore 2? First draft is done. They're in casting.
Yeah.
It's
Apparently,
happening.
Shooter is coming back.
Yep.
I don't know how I feel about this. I'm,
Could be great. Could be. I don't know.
I'm a little nervous.
Yeah.
I'm definitely a little nervous. I'm really hoping that it's not going to be a Dumb and Dumber 2 situation where it's been so many
Yeah.
years, it's so beloved, and then you're going to give us a sequel that's just like the most forgettable piece of shit. Just
Yeah.
wow, you're trying way too hard here.
Yeah. Leaning on member berries and all that
Yeah,
stuff.
which with the sequel to Happy Gilmore, I feel like the member berries is going to be heavy, and I think they're
Yeah.
going to do it on purpose. It'll be Adam Sandler doing it on purpose, and I think
Yeah.
that will work in his favor because it's going to be his style, and it'll be kind of like that. But I don't
Mhm.
know. I don't know how I feel, to be honest.
That's fair.
When I first saw the breaking news that the first draft was released, I didn't believe it. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
this is just
This is a joke.
Yeah, a joke. Someone's just like regurgitating shit. And then Christopher McDonald, Shooter McGavin, posted that the first draft was done, and he's like read it or whatever. And I was like, oh shit. Oh, they're actually, this is real. This is very real. The most I can say is I know they've already done kind of a tribute to him in the first one, but I hope there's something cool for Chubbs. I really do. Even though,
there has to be for Carl Weathers.
Yeah, it'd be kind of weird because they've already it's a whole part of Happy Gilmore, but
yeah, he died.
He dies. But I hope that part of me feels like maybe this is why the movie's getting made, because it just seems so random and it just seems so out of the blue. But with Carl Weathers recently passing away, I feel like I wonder if there was something there that Adam Sandler and him had always talked about. And so Sandler's going to do this kind of as respect for Carl Weathers. I could see Adam Sandler doing that.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's the case, but I could see that being part of it. So, yeah, I'm a little nervous, though. I'm not going to lie, dude.
Okay. That's what I expected.
I'm a little nervous.
I think that's to be expected for sure. We will just have to wait and see.
Yeah. All right. How do you feel about the supposed rumor for movie news?
What rumor?
Well, apparently it's finalized that we have a new 007.
I don't generally care for it, honestly. Like, I like, what's his name? Aaron Taylor Johnson? Joy?
No, not Joy. That's the actress that I always forget her name.
I generally, like, he's fine. He's good in the things that he's in, but I don't see him as Bond. But I know that Daniel Craig got a lot of shit when he was announced as Bond, and he was great. So he could be great. I was just holding out for either Henry Cavill or somebody unknown to take it, even though it's a huge risk. So I don't love it, but we'll wait and see. I think it depends way more on the writing and directing than it does on the actual star. I think if they actually can create the heart of 007 in the movie, then I don't care who it is, really.
Yeah. Oh, it's going to be a whole different version. They're going to have to like steer away from how Daniel Craig portrayed him so that it can be Aaron's own.
I really would love it to be retro, like 70s again.
Yeah.
Take it back to the beginning. That would be cool, but we'll see.
See, I'm still in the vein of like, I don't know if I actually believe this movie news quite yet.
It was like he's confirmed or whatever, but they did that a couple of times with the whole Fantastic Forecast, and that never actually happened. So it's very tentative at this point, I think.
True. Well, all right.
Enough of that. That was a lot. That was fun. So with this movie, this episode is coming out, and I don't know when you're going to listen to it, but it's coming out in April. We said last October that after we binged all of the John Carpenter movies that he wrote and directed and did the scores for, we did an episode on that. We realized a couple of things. We realized, number one, how amazing The Fog is.
Yes.
And number two, that the legend of the town's founding occurs very specifically on April 21st. And so from that point forward, we have to make Fog Day a thing every year from now on. And so this is the inaugural Fog Day.
Dude, look at us. We're doing a couple inaugurals this year. We did our award show, which was a success. Thank you, everyone, again. And kicking off our own movie boners holiday, if you will. Fog Day.
Fog Day. Yeah. This episode comes out a little bit before. Hopefully you watch it in time. And also join us on Instagram, because we're going to go fog wild on Fog Day. I'm going to start lining up memes. It's going to be a wild time.
Yep. What a wonderful, wonderful film this movie is.
It's such a cute... I think we talked about in the other episode that several of his movies are just a tight 90 minutes. And they're so tight and concise and well done. It's a very easy movie to watch, and it moves flawlessly. I was shocked to discover that John Carpenter didn't love it when he was making it, and he's like, "This movie actually isn't very good," and he like. They had to reshoot a bunch. They had to spend like $200,000 more
Yeah.
and did a bunch of reshoots. And like a third of the movie is reshot footage that they added in later because they did the first cut and did not like
Yeah,
it.
that's putting it nicely. I saw an old interview with John Carpenter on it, and he was just like, the movie sucked. And I was like, I found myself as a fan watching it, hear the director say that. I was like, oh, no, it doesn't. But then
I
he
know.
starts,
Like,
he like
I saw
listed all the
reviews
new...
and people are like, the pacing isn't great. And I was like, it's paced great. You are all a bunch of jerks.
I am defending it, but you know, I had to laugh because then he started listing all the scenes that they reshot, everything you see that is like, that was done after first print.
Mhm.
And I started laughing. I was like, oh yeah, the movie wouldn't work if you didn't have that scene. Oh yeah, that
It's
would
like
not...
all the most important stuff.
Yeah.
Like the lighthouse on the roof at the end and the morgue and the whole beginning with the ghost
whole
story at the
opening of the
campfire.
film, the
Yeah.
boat itself when they're on the boat, like the close-ups, the actual kills. Like, there's so much to it that was added.
What movie
after
did
the
you
fact.
have?
I know. I was
Yeah.
like, what? This movie would have been terrible without seeing this stuff.
Yeah, so they definitely saved it from
They
the
did.
brink, I think. They made it a success in the end.
I know when you and I sat down last October to do our John Carpenter thing. Now, you said we learned 2 things, but I think we actually learned 3.
Mhm.
4. We learned
learned a
4
lot.
things, Jake.
Okay, just 4.
I'm sure the list goes on, but we learned that Prince of Darkness is like the horror epic masterpiece, probably not just for Carpenter, but that movie deserves a ton of respect. Go watch that movie. It's amazing.
Yeah.
We also learned that John Carpenter himself deserves way more attention and support and fandom and all the goodies because that dude is a master. Even with his subpar movies, I still think he's like, I think he's the champ when it comes to horror.
Yeah.
Like, this is the dude. His movies, after that episode, I have gone back and rewatched some of the ones that we talked about and then watched more. And I'm like, yeah, John Carpenter is just like, he is on the throne. He is on the throne. And then, the Fog being 21st and the Fog being amazing. And I think you and I both talked about, neither of us had ever actually watched The Fog previously. So it was a whole new experience for us. Rewatching it, I was a little like, please don't let it like lose some of the love that I had for it.
I don't want to see like the cracks in it. I want it to stay great.
Right out the bat with that close up of the stopwatch and the loud snap and the old man tells the campfire, gives you the lore.
Yeah.
Instantly I was like, this movie is amazing. Like, this is so good. I can't believe I went so long not watching this movie. I'm so happy to watch. It's such a wonderful film, Jake. It's so good.
It really is. And you mentioned him being the GOAT. I feel like this being his 4th movie after Dark Star and Assault on Precinct 13 and Halloween, he's just getting ramped up. And if you like the original Halloween, there's so much to like in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
I love the score in The Fog.
The score is killer.
It may be,
pun intended,
it may be my favorite, but it's incredible, and there's so much to love about it.
That deep, like pulsing bass that he has throughout the whole thing. It's that 80. It's like a spooky synthesizer, like from the 80s, but it's got so much weight to it.
Yeah, and just a little piano riff that he does. It's not like Halloween, but it's also, if you like Halloween's music, you'll like this music basically. It's brilliant. I love it for sure. And he co-wrote it with Deborah Hill, who also did Halloween. So there's, I think, a lot of overlap there.
Yeah.
Also has um, completely blank on Jamie Lee Curtis in it, but I like what he does with Jamie Lee Curtis in the Elizabeth role,
Mm-hmm.
which is not focus on her. I think if you focus on her as like the main girl in the movie, it would feel a lot like the next thing after Halloween. It feels very
Right.
separate because she's just more tertiary
Well, she's such
than like
a
a third character.
she's not in the movie very much. I mean, she's
Yeah.
part of a couple of the scares and the climax, but for the most part, she's just kind of there. It's the main character. You kind of have to come down to it's Stevie, in the
Yeah.
lighthouse. She's the one that's watching everything kind of unfold. She's kind of the heroine of the story, honestly, as she's trying to direct people. Um,
Mm-hmm.
you, the movie kind of makes you believe that Father Malone is going to be the main character, but he's really only in the movie a few times. It's
Mm-hmm.
kind of funny how it does that. It's an ensemble piece that kind of actually ends up giving equal time to
Mm-hmm.
everyone in the ensemble without focusing on just one face. Now, it is funny that Jamie Lee Curtis is not the star of it, right? She's
Yeah.
not the main character, but part of the marketing was they did make that poster of her holding the door with
Right.
the pirate arm because everyone was like, it's Jamie Lee Curtis. You should probably have her on there. Like, she's
Yeah.
becoming.
In a John Carpenter movie, and
Yeah, you're gonna want to have Jamie up
Halloween was 2 years ago or whatever.
there.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. I think Stevie Wayne, the GJ, is the main character, played by Adrienne Barbeau, who I didn't know until this week was married to John Carpenter at the time of
Yeah,
making it.
they were
Uh,
romantically involved, and it was fresh off the heels of John Carpenter and Deborah Hill no longer being romantically involved. So I'm sure the set was weird at
yeah, hopefully
times.
not awkward, but probably awkward. And
But I mean, give them some credit. Like, obviously,
sure,
they were able to work together well enough that they made the movie. They were able to talk about the movie, promote it, do everything for it. I think they were still a team for a while after, if not.
yeah, yeah. I know Deborah Hill worked on a few things with him for
Yeah.
a while.
So, kind of respect to those two for kind of being like, yeah, we couldn't make this work, but we made the business side of this all work. So,
Yeah.
good on them, I guess. Way to find something.
Yeah. And then you feel like Tom Atkins' character is also part of one of the main characters,
Yeah,
the guy that picks up Jamie Lee Curtis hitchhiking. I only know him from Halloween 3, Season
me
of the
too.
Witch, which is funny because John Carpenter didn't write or direct that movie, but his longtime friend and collaborator, Tommy Lee Wallace, did, who I think does a few things in The Fog.
Yeah.
He's an editor and a couple of other things, assistant director or something. And they've been in a bunch of stuff. He wrote Escape from New York. They're in a band together, the Coupe de Villes, which has a fun cameo on the radio.
Yeah.
Stevie mentions this next song from the Coupe de Villes, which is a band that those two, John Carpenter and Tommy Wallace and Nick Castle, who is the shape in the Halloween movie, first Michael Myers. So that's a fun little Easter egg for sure.
Yeah, it's kind of fun watching this one after you've seen like Halloween and Halloween 3 because you get
Mhm.
the familiar faces and you're like, hey, it's in a different light.
Mhm.
I mean, yeah, they're still being chased around and terrorized by something evil, but they're generally happy. And then you get Janet Leigh to kind of round it all out, and she's like the Miss Mayor of the town or whatever, and you're like,
Yeah.
this is what a cast. Like, and I will tell you, with Tom Atkins, when we watched it in October, I did get excited because I know
Mhm.
him from Halloween 3, and you know that I love Halloween 3.
Yep.
So when he showed up, I'm like,
Underrated.
oh, so underrated. When he showed up that first time watching in October, just being like, yes, it's that dude. Yeah. And then learning he did this one before Halloween 3, it was like, it works. Cause I was also, I made the joke to myself, and I still have to laugh about it. Of like, I wonder if he'll end up sleeping with like one of the girls just randomly. Sure as shit, he does.
Yeah, it does. Like that scene, we're all over the place right now, but
That's
that
okay.
scene when he picks up Jamie Lee Curtis's character Elizabeth, and she's hitchhiking, and then they end up in bed together. I was like, did they know each other? Like that was so fast.
It's
I was like,
so fast.
maybe they're just role playing, and they actually are from the same town and knew each other. And but then after they sleep together, he's like, oh yeah, I'm Nick, by the way. And I'm like, wait a minute. Yeah, they introduce each other, and it's very funny.
There's a lot of trust in that, in those two. Like,
Yeah.
she's hitchhiking. He hits her with a joke that's like, I mean, it's a good joke. It's a ballsy joke at that time where she's like, are you weird? And he's like, oh yeah, I'm super weird. You're like, this is like a predatory like
Yeah.
scenario, dude. Maybe jokes
Yeah.
are not a good idea, but then she jokes with him, and you're like, only works in the movies. Only works in the movies.
Yeah, they end up having a very good rapport, but it is pretty much by accident. That could have gone the other way very quickly.
And it happens within like a scene. So
Yeah. Yeah, it happens like so the movie starts at 5 minutes before 12 o'clock.
Mhm.
And then there's a bunch of ghost activity that happens from 12 to 1 because it's the witching hour.
Dude.
And one of the things that happens is him picking her up in the car and their windows getting blown out, and then they sleep together, and then 1 o'clock comes like right after that, and it's like there's like 15 minutes between the time you picked her up, you're in bed, and now it's 1 o'clock. Like it was wild how fast
Very
that
wild.
happens.
Now, them sleeping together beside the point, but I love the montage of all the shit
Mm-hmm.
happening because it's, the
Paranormal.
witching hour. I love
Yeah.
that montage. There's something freaky about the sound of machinery operating when no
Mm-hmm.
one is operating it. It's just, and it's so like, you don't see it too often in movies after 2000.
Mm-hmm.
But in the like 70s and 80s, especially, if there was something supernatural, machinery was going to be a part of it. And I think just the way it sounds in
Yeah.
that specific, like those specific movies, it is kind of like, ooh, this is unsettling.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, it's very interesting how it controls. Like it makes all the payphones ring. It makes the cars turn on, like lights turn on and blow horns, and the lift in the
the
mechanic
lift in the
shop go
mechanic
up.
shop, yeah. The gas
Yeah,
pump like falls off and then starts pumping gas.
yeah, and the way it starts like going ding
Yeah.
ding, like yeah, it's
And
pretty eerie.
And then, of course, we live in 2024 where, depending which state you're living in, your gas prices, I mean, it's absurd everywhere, but it's really
Uh-huh.
absurd in California. Um, don't look at the price that it ends because it will make you mad.
Yeah, I was weeping when because I'm the dork that pays very close attention to that, and 8 gallons, a little over 8 gallons spill out. It cost you $4.34, which means it was like 52.3 cents a gallon back then in 1980. Wild,
And we
absolutely disgusting.
and the audience collectively weeps.
Yeah, yeah, it was groaning for sure. But yeah, I love that all of the stuff that happens. I love the grocery store clerk as he's like cleaning up and
The
stuff, and
bottles.
and the whole room vibrates and all the bottles shake. There's one specific shot where it's of the two different domed
Yeah.
mirrors, and they're on like opposite ends of the screen. So you want to watch to see if you see anything in the mirrors, any movement or anything, but they're so far apart that it's impossible, and it just makes you more unease. You're like, something's going to happen. Something's going to happen, and I'm going to miss it.
So he does. I know jump scares get a lot of shit, and they deserve a lot of shit when it comes to horror films because it's such a like overused trope, and it's an
Sure.
easy thing to pull off because people are gonna jump pretty. I mean, you go boo, and
Yeah.
someone's gonna be like, meh. But
Yeah.
he does something real fun with that kind of anticipation with the jump scares in this movie, and John Carpenter is known for also shit talking jump scares. He thinks they're cheap. He thinks they're terrible. Like you shouldn't ever rely on those, but he kind of does in The Fog. But there's so much anticipation, and yeah, you brought up the mirrors. You want to watch both mirrors, but you can't watch both mirrors, and it does make you feel even more uncomfortable because you've been watching all this other everything else being affected by whatever presence there is, and there's no real explanation. It's just the witching hours. So, and there's not even fog at that point, so it's even more like this California like sea town is screwed no matter what. This is kind of who's going to be the first victim. But then the fog shows up. I love the fog.
Yeah, the fog is such a great effect and used flawlessly, and I love how it's ominous and it's just hiding what's in it in part, but then also people are very concerned about it at a certain point. They're like, you need to shut your windows, not let the fog in, because you
Right.
don't know if the fog is bad or like what's in it is bad. You don't know anything, and no information's getting around, so people get very uneasy.
Which, you know what? In that kind of situation, it's okay to be like, we can go a
Better safe
little,
than sorry.
yeah, we can be a little extra right now. It's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, good on Stevie for, and good on the old babysitter just knowing, like, make sure everything's locked up because we don't want this. Of course, she makes a terrible decision shortly after, but it's a horror
R.I.P.
movie.
Mrs. Krobritz.
Yep.
Yeah.
But the fog itself, like the effects they use for it are great. The use of miniatures and the prints and the way that they had to like kind of map out kind of like the miniature sets, but then they had to blanket it with black sheets and paint.
Yeah.
So that they could
and like film it in a soundstage and then superimpose it into actual like exterior locations.
And it's all fog machines. It's all like it's all man-made.
Real.
And
yeah,
watching the making of stuff, I have the Blu-ray for it, like one of the anniversaries of it. They show him doing this, and it's so fun to watch practical effects being done, especially in those days where you're kind of forced to use them, and especially it's a low budget film, so you really have to figure out how to do it.
Yeah,
and it's just creative. Like it's so much respect to these teams that are pulling this stuff off. It's just like, because then you see it in the film and you're like, this looks great. And
yeah,
the fog is scary itself. It's intense because it's so thick. People freak out over, natural fog that can get thick, where I think we've all tried to drive in it where you're like, I really can't see anything in front of me. And you do that like, I hope there's no one here. kind of driving.
Yeah.
Of course, after you've seen like the fog or the mist and driving in that stuff, you're still, I think it's just in the back of your head of like, some monsters are around.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't look behind you.
But the fog, it's like, it really is kind of a character all unto itself in the movie. And I think that's such a strength. There's that.
It feels like there's life in it.
Yeah. And there's that shot where, as it's moving through the town from Stevie's point of view, she's watching it. When she sees it come over and kind of track like the stairs down to the lighthouse and it's spilling over, that might be one of my favorite shots in the movie because it just looks so
Yeah.
daunting and just so like, oh yeah, confirmation, you're fucked.
Yeah. Yeah. And then she's talking about like these different roads are getting cut off and stuff. It
Yeah.
feels intelligent. It feels like it's searching for something.
It's searching or it's planned and it's just enacting whatever it had planned. It's such
Yeah.
a fun thing to watch. And yeah, you and I are big suckers for those practical effects. So I think I'm gonna say it really goes up a notch just having watched them do the making of stuff, and you're like, God, this is fucking
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, I also love I love the whole story. I mean, I'm a sucker for maritime things and having to do with the ocean and ships and pirates and kind of not just the lore but also the history and
Mhm.
things like that. And but mythology is a huge part of that, and the fear of the unknown has always been a big part of that, especially exploring the world and stuff. And I love this movie's story and how there's kind of two parts. There's the story you think you know, which is the preamble, the intro scene where the ghost story where he tells kind of this founding of this town and there was a ship that ran aground and there's this terrible accident, all these people died, and they're still kind of out there searching for a campfire. And that's kind of just the approved history that everybody kind of knows, but is a little spooky, but no big deal. And then one of the paranormal things that happens is at the church, the stone falls out of the wall and a diary is behind it, almost as if the diary wanted to be found on the
Yeah.
100th anniversary of this town's founding. And then you learn the real history and how there's actually more of a darker history to this town. And I like that idea. I think it's a great idea for a movie or for any story that because it rings true. It rings
Mhm.
true that there's always the what actually happened, and then there's what was put in the history books because history is always written by the victors, basically. And so to learn that the accident of this ship drowning and all the crew drowning was planned and nefarious, and these people actually wanted to steal the gold of this rich guy that had leprosy and was trying to found a leper colony really close to this town or township, and they steal his gold and use it to found their town, and now the six founders are wealthy and kind of like in control of everything.
Mhm.
For that to have been 100 years ago, and now we're on April 21st, and they centennial anniversary, and they're back to extract the revenge. I love that story. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, I love I love it when movies can take some form of folklore, from a country or a culture, and make a spin a story to it and just incorporate it. It's always fun. Um, One, you get to kind of learn some of that stuff. What I love about the Fog's lore or this
Hmm.
movie's lore is it's completely made up, like the centennial anniversary and these pirates coming back for the gold. Um, what's funny though is like the story the old man tells at the start about the ship saw bonfires on the beach and were headed towards it, but they crashed instead, and the ship sank and the crew died. That was a
Hmm.
real story. I forget the name of the incident, but that actually happened a long time ago, and like I don't even remember what year. Um, but I like that Carpenter took like, well, what if we took this story that's already here, but we put it into this fictitious town, and I'm gonna build the lore off of that because that's like you said, especially with maritime stuff, old old maritime,
Hmm.
everything was unknown. So any explanation to the unknown had to be something grand and supernatural because you
Right.
couldn't explain it. And so I like that Carpenter was able to take the idea of this the shipwreck happening due to they thought they saw bonfires on the beach, and then spin it to be this town's actual lore of no, the founders of the town plotted this nefarious assassination and were murderers, and the town thrived off of that. I like that kind of lore, and I like how
Yeah.
the lore you hear in the movie, it's saying you buy it right away. You believe it instantly, where it's like, man, if I grew up in that tiny town, because it's not a big town, but
Right.
you instantly know, like, if I was raised in that tiny town, I would 100% follow that lore. That town seems
Yeah.
like that kind of place where the lore is the heartbeat of the town. Everyone
Hmm.
knows it. It's like the bedtime story you tell your kids to keep them in line, right? Don't steal.
Right.
But
Yeah. The pirates will come back and get you.
but I love folklore, and I like that this movie doesn't have so much like an investigation of an explanation. Father Malone pretty much tells you
Lays it out.
exactly, like, the diary says we're all gonna die,
Yeah.
so we're all gonna die.
Yeah, pretty much.
But I love how Father Malone takes it, because you meet him at the beginning and he seems kind of off already. It might be because he's drinking wine late at night and he's alone and just kind of like, gotta get ready for the celebration. He's kind of like reluctant and like, whatever.
Yeah, you don't really know if he's a drunk or just a dick because the first time you see him, he is drinking like it just seems like for fun, and then there's a John Carpenter
Yeah,
cameo as
there
the
is.
guy that wants to get paid. He's like, "Hey, can I get paid for today?" And the priest is just like ignores him. He's like, "Why don't you come in a little bit later tomorrow?"
A little later. So he tells him, like, come in at 4 originally. And then
Mhm.
he's like, uncredited Carpenter says, hey, you think I could get paid for the work? And you know what? Come in at 6. My brain instantly was like, dude, that's 2 hours of like non-work. That sucks. Like,
Yeah, not only are you not paying me, but I'm not working less
right.
tomorrow
You
now.
just took 2 hours away from me. That's shitty. But then the brick falls out of the wall. He's got to read this diary, and I can only imagine, like, if you're already kind of in a negative headspace, and then
Yeah.
you come to find out that, like, the supernatural event just happened to you. You find this diary from your grandfather. You're reading it, and you're finding out that
Mhm.
your grandfather was the mastermind of this whole plot, and the town
At the
is
stroke of
founded on
midnight.
blood.
Yeah.
Like, I think he's relatable, because I think everyone would be like, "Well, fuck this!" Like,
Yeah, we're fucked. I would agree. Yeah, the first page he turns to when he picks it up, it just says April 30th, midnight till one belongs to the dead.
yeah,
Good Lord, deliver us. And I got deep into like research on like references and
okay,
things in this movie because there's quite a bit. And April 30th is a reference to Walpurgis Night, which is a pagan feast that happens on the night between April 30th and May 1st. And according to Wikipedia, Walpurgis Night is a holiday that has to do with Christians of Germany battling pests and rabies and whooping cough, as well as against witchcraft. And so, I think you could put witchcraft in this bucket. You could also all of those things, rabies and whooping cough. They sound adjacent to leprosy, so might as well throw leprosy in the mix.
yeah,
But there's a funny thing that happens right before that when he first opens the diary. Before he goes to that page, you for a split second you see a page, and
you have to
it's
pause
hard to read. You have
it.
to pause it. It's a split second. You can pause it, and it's hard to read, or you can go to IMDb and they'll tell you. There's a bunch of hilarious stuff, basically just scratched in there by the prop master, and he says stuff like, my college education to work writing dumb shit in this fucking movie props
You are
being
reading
one
it.
of them. Yeah, it's time to bring in the words guide or the big tits, tattoos, shaved beavers. I know, horny. Yeah, he's like talks all about all this stuff. It's pretty hilarious as just like a split second
Yeah, you
prop
have
in
to
this
pause
movie.
it, try and read the handwriting of it, or go on IMDb. It's like the first tidbit that's going to pop up.
It's
It's
hilarious.
awesome. I love little gags like that in movies or shows when a prop
Yeah.
person does that. You have to wonder how many are like an approved joke by your director and how many are like disgruntled things because god damn it, I can't believe I have to do this.
Yeah, how many were just slipped past them that nobody cared to double check?
Yeah. You know, I thought it was I we've seen the movie a few times now.
Yeah.
And I know that first time we kind of joked about like, dude, those steps to the lighthouse, that lighthouse, it's insane. It's got like the lighthouse is real, and the steps, there's over 300 steps that the crew had to, because it wasn't soundstage, so every shot that you
Mm.
see at the lighthouse is real. So when you see her walking down it, the crew had to carry that equipment up and down the 300 stairs.
Jeez.
And there were times because it's a national park essentially,
Mhm.
so it's protected, so you can't mess with anything on it, and it gets closed off due to weather at times. So if the wind was picking up or if there was,
Yeah.
sufficient bad weather, they would close it off, and then your whole shooting schedule would have to be shifted and
Mm.
changed to adhere to whatever nature decided to do at that moment. I
Yeah.
thought, like, I was thinking about that too, just in terms of the crews and the cameras back then in the 80s.
Yeah.
Not shoulder friendly. They looked shoulder
Yeah.
friendly because they put those little like the shoulder groove on the bottom of the camera for your cameramen, but they're heavy as hell. I can't
Mhm.
imagine, let alone walking 300 steps. I think like in total, it's like 900 and something feet from the top of the staircase to the lighthouse itself. But there's 300 and I had the real number. It's like 330 something steps.
Wow.
It's
Yeah, and
insane.
I know that I don't know exactly like how heavy the camera was and stuff, but I know it was a big deal that John Carpenter chose to shoot this movie in the like Panavision
Yeah.
format. That it makes it look very legit and epic and beautiful. But it was kind of more uncommon for this scope of movie and budget of movie to
Right.
do
Well, and
that
that
kind
was
of
kind of
thing.
like his point, was he didn't want it to look like a low budget film, even though it was a low
Hmm.
budget film. So shooting it in the panoramic 235, that was kind of new back then, which made me think and kind of laugh like, oh, look at this, another director that I love that like decided to switch things up when no one else was
Yeah,
doing it. Like, oh,
push a new format. Yeah,
I see a trend that I have in my fandom.
yeah, that sounds like a pre Nolan flex.
and all the people roll their eyes at you and I still slipping in Nolan references. Look at us
Yeah,
go.
it happens. uh, yeah, the lighthouse scenes with Stevie. I love the voice that she puts on
Mhm.
as the DJ. She does a great job with it. But the that scene where she's carrying all the stuff down those steps is right after her son found that he thinks he's finding a giant gold coin on the beach that's glinting in the sunlight, and he goes up and he sees the wave wash over it and wash away, and finds a piece of wood that says the Dane, or just Dane on it, and it's a reference to the ship that was lost. And so he gives it to his mom, and she takes it down to the lighthouse. That lighthouse scene, I think, is my favorite, where she's just listening to like station promos and trying to like choose one and not really paying attention. And then that piece of wood is just sitting on the desk, and and that tape player is playing the promos, and then that piece of wood starts seeping water
Yeah.
out of it, and you just know in your soul that it's like seawater, it's salty seawater, and it's flowing down, and it like interacts with the tape player, and it just like slows down, and you're like, oh no, it's malfunctioning. And then the scariest voice comes through, and she sees it, and she sees that the board now doesn't say Dane, it says 6 must die,
Yeah.
which is scary right before it like bursts into flames, which is awesome and terrifying at the same time.
Her in that lighthouse, that sequence, it's one of the most natural looking things I think I've seen in a movie or that just kind of actually struck with me as so normal for this character. She walks down the stairs to get to the lighthouse, not paying attention. She's carrying her stuff. She gets in the lighthouse. She does the whole she kicks the storage closet closed because it opens up due to the wind. When she opens the door, she walks up the next little spiral staircase that she has to go up to her office. The whole time she's not looking at anything. She's looking at what she's carrying. She gets up there, and there's just something, it's so weird to me that this really stuck with me, but watching how she places her stuff down, how she interacts with everything else in the office, it's so mundane and thoughtless. But to me, I was like, I actually believe that this is her daily routine. I would full on believe this. It reminded me of when we, general people check your mail and you're walking back in and you're doing all this stuff. You sort your mail and then you have that oh, fuck it. And you just set it down where it goes or where you put it, its spot, and you move on with what you're doing. It just felt so natural. And I was like, I don't remember the last time something so mundane and simple that I should not be focusing on really kind of caught me as this feels like what I just did when I checked the mail. This is so crazy. Sure. But yeah, the board, when it starts seeping water, my reaction is ooh, yeah.
Yeah, she's kicking off.
Yeah, right. And it works so well because she's in her routine. So anything abnormal from that is going to really mess it up. And that's exciting in a horror film. You're yeah. I love that scene too. It's just, there's so much to it that I'm there's a lot in this sequence. But the sequence has so much just normal, almost B-roll to it.
Right. Yeah, there's of the significant things that happens, it's a couple of seconds, but it's all, everything around it is so well
it's
formulated.
Just with the anticipation, it just lends more into the anticipation, because every scene that something's not happening, you are full on anticipating what's going to happen, when can it happen, is it only if the fog is there, and the board bursting and the witching hour with all the machinery at the beginning kind of makes you believe it's not solely dependent on the fog itself. There's other stuff there, and that's fun. That's just fun.
Yeah, and the tape slowing down and then a voice coming through is very ominous, and I had to turn on subtitles to figure out what it said exactly, because I was very curious, because I was like, this feels important. I need to know all of it. And so if you missed it, it says, something that one lives with, like an albatross around the neck. No, more like a millstone, a plumbing stone, by God. Damn them all. And I Googled that phrase, and a bunch of people have looked this up before. And the phrase "like an albatross around the neck" is a reference to a poem, The Rime of the Ancient Mariner, by the English poet Samuel Taylor Coleridge. And the Rime of the Ancient Mariner is interesting because it was written in 1797, and the movie takes place, I think, or the initial betrayal or murder of the ship is like 1808, I think. So those mariners, this is like 10 years after
Yeah.
this poem was written, so that tracks. And then it's also about a mariner. It's about this mariner who joins this crew, and they're driven south to eventually reach the icy waters of Antarctica. But then an albatross appears and leads them out of the ice where it's stuck, to on a southern wind that takes them to a warmer and safer place. But then the crew starts to question if it was actually helping them, or there was they make a big mistake, and they start supporting a crime that happens and arouses the wrath of some spirits. So this whole thing kind of goes on, and there actually is a character in the poem that has an albatross, the bird that they thought led them. They instead of a cross, the albatross is hung around his neck, and he's dropped out into the sea. And so it's pretty connecting, such a small reference, but very, very interesting. And you should look up the engraving illustrations that Gustave Doré has done of this poem, because they're brilliant and beautiful and haunting in a way that I feel like just elevates this movie for making reference to it. I think it's brilliant.
What's the dude's name?
So Gustave Doré has done the illustrations for it. The poem is the rhyme, R-I-M-E, of the Ancient Mariner, written by the English poet. Hold on, I lost his name.
Found it.
Samuel Taylor Coleridge. Yeah. There's also,
those are cool.
Quite a few people may be familiar with the Bible verse, Matthew 18, verse 6, that says, "If anyone causes one of these little ones who believe in me to stumble, it would be better for them to have a large millstone hung around their neck and be drowned in the depths of the sea." Basically, it would be better for you to just have this giant, heavy stone that they used to mill grain and stuff hung around you and tossed to sink to the bottom of the sea, as like than to have like committed that sin, basically.
Dude,
so yeah.
Yeah, those are.
Yeah, Gustave Doré is incredible. Those are beautiful. He's done great illustrations for, not the Iliad, the Dante's Inferno as well.
Mm-hmm.
He's brilliant. So yeah, those connections are so cool. And then the board changing to say 6 must die is kind of the crux of the movie. That there are 6 founders who committed that original murder and the vengeance is going to extract 6 souls, 6 victims. And so over the course of the movie, 6 people do die. Spoiler alert. If you have gotten this far, you should have seen the movie by now.
and should have just known, like, yeah, we're going to spoil it.
So 3 fishermen in the initial boat get killed.
Mm-hmm.
And then Mrs. Kobritz, the babysitter, you mentioned her slightly. We'll come back to her. Dan, the weatherman, and then Father Malone at the end. And then I'm sure we'll touch on all those. Those are kind of the heightened, scariest bits, the ghosty bits.
I had
incredible.
For a movie that has 0 blood and gore, like actual blood and gore, the kill scenes stick with you. Like,
yeah, it's an interesting thing that John Carpenter, sweet little John Carpenter, wants to make a PG movie. He's like, I'm not going to put any blood in this movie, and then they like slap him with an R rating. Like, no, this is horrifying.
Like, you added the scares, which are the close-ups of the blades going into the dude, the hook, the meat hooks.
Yeah,
like
I
think it's the
meat hook,
hooks.
Ice hook. Yeah,
the
brutal.
One sailor that takes a meat hook to the back, he gets stabbed in the shoulder and a meat hook in the back, and you see him get lifted.
Yeah,
I don't care who you are. How desensitized you are. There's something about a meat hook going into someone's back that will always stick with you, where you're just like, ooh, that one's That one's
Yeah.
brutal. But it was funny. So I was watching, all the special features on the disc that I got and the making of.
Hmm.
And it's fun to watch that because it was filmed in like 19 it was shortly after. I want to say it was like late 80s, maybe early 90s that they filmed the interviews
Okay.
for the fog and stuff because it was like anniversary style. It was in the 90s
Sure.
because Carpenter was older. Well, some of them when he was older, and then they showed interviews with him and Deborah Hill and Jamie Lee Curtis shortly after it released in 1980. Anyways, Carpenter and Deborah Hill have this part where they're talking, and it made me feel validated, Jake,
Okay.
because they both emphasize two things. Simplicity works,
Hmm.
especially in this genre,
Yeah.
and the less you see, the more effective it will be. And I was
Hmm.
like, I mean, Deborah Hill says that like almost verbatim, and I was like, yes. And yeah,
Yeah.
there's close-ups of the blades going in them, but the lack of blood or even the meat hook to the back, you don't actually
Hmm.
see it penetrate the dude's back, but you feel it, you know it, you
Right.
can hear it, and you're just like, I was just so like, yes, 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 yes. This is awesome. Like more directors, more filmmakers for certain movies, I think need to
Yeah.
really be taking steps back. And we said it in that episode back in October
Hmm.
of like more filmmakers, it feels, need to take a step back to basics.
Hmm.
Find the simplicity. Don't stop trying to rely on, you know, all the super special technology that we have now to kind of bail you out of creating.
Yeah.
And watching the documentary on the fog and stuff, I was very much just like, this, I feel validated. I feel like this validates everything you and I have said. And it made me
Hmm.
kind of a bigger fan, just like, all right. I
Yeah. It
love
makes you feel like these
this.
people get it. Like obviously they get it because they
They
make
get
great
it,
movies,
yeah.
but you know that it wasn't an accident.
It
They're
wasn't an
intentionally
accident, and
doing
that made
things.
me, because I rewatched it a couple times this week, and the second time I rewatched it, which was after I watched the documentaries and the interviews and stuff, I love the sounds so fucked up, but I love the kill scenes even more because you don't have all the gore, and it's so much
Hmm.
more effective. And it's so like when the babysitter dies, I mean, she's so protective, and you're like, good on you. Now you need to go and stay with the kid. But she opens the
Yeah.
door and you're like, well, shit, you're dead. But
Yeah.
you just see her get taken, and your mind just runs wild with
Hmm.
how many times did she get stabbed? Was it just
Hmm.
stabbings, or did she like get beheaded, or was there
Yeah.
meat hooks involved with her too? Like your
Right.
mind just goes 20 miles an hour. There's only like the sailor that you see the close-ups. I mean, he's probably the worst, but I had forgotten how effective the kills
Hmm.
actually are. And then
Yeah.
rewatching it was like, ooh, those thumps, or the
Yeah.
whumps, I should say, are like,
Yeah. Yeah.
ooh, ooh, yeah. Like,
Yeah. They're great.
oh, I love it.
Yeah, I love that initial group of sailors, and they're out on a little clipper just drinking. Um, when they go missing, and the Coast Guard and Nick Castle and Elizabeth go and find them, I really like the mystery of like what they discover and how they're
Yeah,
trying to figure it out. Um, of course, we've seen it happen. We've seen the fog roll in. We've seen the ship go alongside them, like in the fog, and that's so cool to see. And then the actual crew, you just see their silhouettes, but they're so ominous and terrifying. I love all of that, of course. But in the bright of day, and they're finding the ship, and there's no crew there. It's just like a ghost ship that's just sitting out in the ocean with no crew anymore. And all of the gauges are broken, and everything's like full of salt water, and they're trying to figure it out. They're like, how is this possible? It's like it's been underwater for a week, and it's
Right.
just been sitting here on the surface peacefully overnight, and we can't figure out what happened. Just that mystery and trying to figure out what caused it is awesome. And it's like, and then as it's leading towards everything going on, and more things happen, and it starts coming ashore, and they start to kind of, I guess, figure out that the fog is bad and evil or supernatural and moves against the wind and
Yeah.
all of that. It's very, very cool.
And you know, make sure if you're sitting with your back to a door, I don't know, be mindful. Or at least Jamie Lee Curtis probably should have been more mindful in your younger days when you're sitting thinking that everything is like off, but you can breathe, because it's gonna turn out bad for you. Like either Michael's
Yeah.
gonna sit back up, or you're gonna have a corpse fall on you, or you're gonna have a corpse come back to life and like kind of
Mhm.
ominously stand behind you and just be there
Yeah.
in like a super threatening way. That hospital room scene is still like,
Yeah.
this is effective.
Yeah.
And it's
Right, for not really anything to happen, like, he doesn't attack her or try to
right.
kill her,
He's
or
just
he
there.
just kind of, you just see his boots hit the floor, and you're like, "This is bad. This is scary."
I think what makes that work and be effective for being very anticlimactic
Mhm.
is that it's well lit room.
Yeah.
There's other people around. It's a hospital, so you're supposed to kind of feel safe already. And
Yeah.
it's not late at night when this dude like stands up. Like
Mhm.
all the rules are
Yeah.
kind of being broken in that scene. And I think that's what works. I love it when a horror movie is like, oh, your normal safe spot
Yeah.
gone.
It is the scene that, granted, it's a scene that they added after to add more excitement or ominousness or whatever,
Mhm.
but it is the one that I have the most, like, question about, as if it could be cracks in the picture, or the if there's a gap, like a logical gap in it,
Yeah.
because there isn't any fog. It's the only time that you see somebody that isn't one of the original pirates come to life. Like, is this a thing that we need to be aware of, that if they murder somebody that can come back to life? It's kind of a one-off that you see, and nothing really happens,
It
but it
is a
does raise
one-off.
questions.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you question it too hard, there's not really anything there
I
to
think
get out of it.
probably technically it's probably a crack. It's probably definitely a scene that they're like, "Ooh, this will just be we're coming
Creepy.
off the heels of the corpse falling on her and he's got like no
Mhm.
eyes and he's dead. Like that's freaky alone." Because it's
Yeah.
two jump scares back to back. You get
Right.
the
Expected
the
one and the
locker falls
unexpected
open
one.
and then the corpse falls on her. Yeah.
Mhm.
So it almost feels like let's throw one more in here, but it won't be the jump scare. It's just everyone's already on edge. This will just kind of like, as everyone's kind of coming down, this will elevate it
Mhm.
right back up so we can keep them up here.
Yeah.
So I think it is a crack. I think it is kind of
But it's
a forced.
a clever manipulation of the tone of the movie
Yeah.
to keep it up there.
And I don't know. Maybe I'm reaching. Maybe I'm just extra forgiving for movies that I love. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I would almost say you could make the argument that because of like all the supernatural stuff that happened at the beginning of the movie when there was no fog,
True.
that maybe there is more than just six ghost pirates.
Yeah.
Maybe there's more lore around this
Mhm.
town. Um, I don't know. I think
Yeah.
honestly it's just a forced scene that they wanted to make sure they kept everyone's heart rate up a little bit. And you know what? It's a cool scene, even for an anticlimactic one, so I don't judge it too much.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that I think that there definitely can be more than meets the eye with the actual pirates and the fog itself, that the town and its history and the initial act of evil has locked some
Sure,
nefarious energy or what have you,
sure.
in the
And
town.
you know, Carpenter is a well known H.P. Lovecraft fan and a big
Yeah.
Tales from the Crypt fan. So ghost stories and supernatural shit, he's down for that. So I'm sure this tiny town
Mhm.
has a lot more to it than just uh you know, ghost
Mhm.
pirates. Um yeah.
Yeah. I love I love the ghost story part of it. I think it's the strongest. Just it is simple, but I'm surprised not many movies have done it well, in that just the initial ghost story at the beginning. Nick has its own ghost story in that ship
Yep.
when the locker opens right before, like he's building the tension with the story from his childhood that his dad found a gold coin and then he took it home and it wasn't in his pocket anymore. And that connects to the gold coin that turned into the wood. Um, and then the actual, I guess, the reason for the ghost story in the diary and stuff. So having all of these kind of stories spread throughout, whether whether they're true or not, whether they're half truths or not, you don't need to know all the details in order to get the feelings that they bring, and that's why we love them.
Yeah.
And I think that's why we love this movie, is that the feelings that it brings and the levels that it keeps you at is very expertly
It
done.
feels like such a classic ghost revenge story. It feels
Yeah.
very like, yeah, it's just it's classic. These men were they died in a horrible way
Mhm.
during a malicious act. Ghosts have unfinished business. That's like the trope. So
Yeah.
they're gonna come back. I think it's kind of funny that they wait to really actually come back until the 100th anniversary. Like that's a
Hmm.
long time for a ghost to be like waiting. Um,
Yeah, they really wanted it to pack a punch.
right, right. Like, you know what? We're tired of being in limbo, so we're gonna start taking everyone out.
Hmm.
Well, or we'll match the souls so we can like
Hmm.
go off and be free or whatnot. But it just feels like classic ghost stuff. They need to finish their
Yeah.
business so they can move on. Yeah, they do it kind of violently and very dauntingly. Every time they knock on a door, it's just like
Hmm.
every when for our generation and generations before us, like hearing knocks on the door, especially late at night, was always, I mean, it's always scary. Don't take that wrong. But we didn't have ring cameras, we didn't have
Right.
security. There was you heard a knock on the door and it's very like not
Who's there?
yeah, and you're not going to answer the door. You're going to sit quietly in your living room and be like, maybe they'll go away.
Yeah, that's exactly how I was. I'm still like that. I'm
Me
like, I
too.
don't want to answer the door.
You hear the knock and you just sit there and you're like, don't move. They can't see
Yeah.
me, but don't move.
I'm not expecting anybody. I'm not answering the door.
Right. But it's the way they do it. It's that slow, loud
Yeah.
knock. And they just keep doing it just to see if like they can draw you out. So there's like that weird temptation to it. Um,
Hmm.
it's just I love the way Carpenter approached a ghost story in this, and you're right, Jake.
Yeah.
It's exactly why you and I like this. I am shocked that a lot of other ghost story movies don't try to like just kind of give you these little snippets of what
Hmm.
actually happened, what's the real story behind the ghosts. But everyone has their own. I
Yeah.
kind of I think more movies need to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I couldn't think of like anyone that's done it well. It feels like, I mean, maybe it's not true, but it feels like to me that there just hasn't been, or that it's always done too cheesy or too cliche or too whatever, and it has never landed like as good as this anyway for me.
And I think it does land really well for this, kind of like what we were talking about earlier with it. It's such a small seaside town
Yeah.
that already has its own lore to it. So you almost feel like any other lore that it might have, everyone is also going to have their little legends. It's like the big house that you always thought was empty, and you were like, "That's the haunted house in the neighborhood." Every neighborhood had one.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. The knocks on the door, though, I was like taking notes constantly because at the first time when Nick and Elizabeth just finished doing it, and right before 1 o'clock, there's knocks on the door, but it's in sets of 4. It's like knock, 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 knock. I forget how to count. Knock, 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 and then like right before he stops, the bell on the clock chimes, and it's in sets of 4. It's like ding, 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 ding,
So
ding.
you were trying to
And so I
figure
was
out
like,
if 4 had
I
a
was like,
connection.
4 is the 4th month is April. April 21st is Fog Day. And so I'm like trying to figure it out. But then later on, when they like knock on the door for the weatherman, it's like just like one knock. It's like knock,
Yeah.
knock, knock. And I'm like, well, you're blowing my whole numerology I'm trying to do here.
You're trying to find all these like rabbit holes,
Hidden codes and stuff.
and hidden
Yeah.
codes in a John Carpenter 1980 horror film.
Sure, why not?
Where I
You never
literally
know.
just got done talking about
Keep it simple.
keep it simple.
I like complicated things too.
He'll throw his nods to like Lovecraft and Tales from the Crypt and Halloween, because that's what he had into there, but he's not gonna go like, we need numerology now. We're gonna dive into this.
There's a secret hidden message that this one dork in 2024 is gonna figure out. Yeah. Well, you don't know until you try, and that's
it's true. But I respect that you tried it. I respect that.
So they kill the weatherman, and that is cool. I like how they kill the weatherman, but I don't have anything else to say about it. I like that. I like mostly how they kill Mrs. Kobritz, the babysitter, sweet old lady, and how Stevie is on like the radio, and she's like begging people to go and save her son.
Yeah.
Like she can't. This is a thing I questioned while I was watching it, because I was like, if it was my wife and my son was at home, she would be fucking out of that in this lighthouse. She would not. I think that Stevie, because she apologizes to her son after. She's like, Steve, I hope you forgive me. I'm sorry, but I couldn't leave. I can't leave. And I think she feels like it's her responsibility as the person on the radio who can talk to the whole town, and also up in the lighthouse see where the fog is going. She feels responsible for kind of like keeping tabs on it and helping people escape, which I get. That's noble, I guess. But if my wife, if she was there and her son was being hunted by this fog, she'd be fucking down the street so fast. Like there'd be nothing stopping her from getting there. And so it did make me question at first. I was like, are you afraid to go out? Like, why are you still there?
Oh, I think there's definitely a factor of fear to Stevie staying. But she does stay because she's the one that's able to actually see everything. Yeah. She's got to call it out. She's trying to help, save a town. She doesn't know that only 6 people are actually going to be taken.
Yeah.
And I think it's kind of funny because even you as the audience, you're told with the plank that only 6 people are actually going to go. I mean, I guess even Stevie kind of is told, but she's not really paying attention, just like you.
Yeah.
Because you assume like this town's about to die and everyone's at the centennial, like they're all going to die. And then none of them actually interact with the fog. except for Janet Leigh and her assistant. But
Yeah, they definitely tell you six must die. Like that could infer that six have to die, but more could
more
die.
could,
I
yeah.
think most of the movie is wondering which six are
Yeah.
going to die, and is it the ones I care about the most, or is it the ones that are pieces of shit, or
Dude,
what's
I'll
the
tell you
story?
what, like movies like this, well, really any horror film always makes me just kind of like, I always seem to have to take a moment to judge myself pretty harshly, and then I can move on to just enjoying the movie. Because I'm
Hmm.
always thinking, like, man, you are terrible parents for letting your young child sign on to be a part of this scene or this sequence or this story.
Yeah.
You know, I say it all the time with The Exorcist, like Linda Blair's parents. Wow, you guys shit the bed with that one. Um,
Hmm.
but this poor kid, I'm like, this, even if I knew it was fake at that age, I
Hmm.
think I would be traumatized as a kid. Have it, you're watching like the fog seep under your door. You've got
Yeah.
the loud knocks again, and all of a sudden it's not just the knocks. Now it's like they're busting your door down.
Yeah. You see a claw come through the door.
Right. And then on top of that, as your door is being ripped apart by this supernatural being, a
Hmm.
stranger, a strange man shatters your window and just tells you, "Come on, kid." Like,
Yeah.
kid makes the right choice. It's a rare moment that trusting a stranger is okay.
Yeah.
But I'm like, if I was that age
Hmm.
filming this scene, I feel like that would be traumatizing. That'd be kind of messing with me a little bit. Like,
Yeah. Sure.
there's a lot of situational red flags going here, to say the least.
Hmm.
Uh, but I also, like you, I wasn't thinking in terms of like my wife, because she doesn't exist.
You're a bachelor. Eligible bachelor.
But I did think, like, okay, obviously I'm going to go to thinking of my own. So
Hmm.
I'm like I'm like you and Christy, where it's like I'm pretty sure I would have let the town fend for itself,
Yeah.
and I would have had my kid out of there pretty quick. That would have
Yeah.
been
Pretty much immediately.
that would have been a pretty easy decision to make. I'd be hightailing it to get the kid to safety. I did think about my daughter's mom and thought she also would have hightailed it. In fact, she probably would have been extra cautious and been like, yeah, we're gonna not be around. People are talking about like some freaky,
Like the night before when all
yeah,
the weird stuff
like,
happened, you're like, maybe we should just leave, take a break.
like, I heard about the boat. Like, everything is just off. This is not good. We're gonna get
Hmm.
out of town. Clearly, it's not safe. That's probably what she would
It's
have done.
wise. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's very wise.
But Stevie does. I mean, it is noble. I mean, she's got to do that. Um,
Hmm.
I just think of the amount of stress that would be, because you're screaming into a microphone and you have
Hmm.
no clue if anyone is, or more importantly, can
Right.
hear you say this.
Yeah, it depends so much on them turning the radio on, and then also the phone lines are out, so maybe the radio waves
Right?
or
You have no
whatever
clue.
is not working. Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
But she does stay at the lighthouse, and she does have like when she comes down the stairs and the fog seeping into the lighthouse itself.
Hmm.
If that was me, I probably would have been like, "Yep, this is how I die. This is it."
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. Like, this is the end.
like,
Yeah,
where do
for
you
sure.
go? I mean, she goes to the top, but like, it's
It's your only
it's
option,
your
yeah.
only option. I'm clumsy as hell. I probably would have slid right off, not been able to stop my feet on the ladder. Like, it'd probably not turn out great for me.
Yeah, you do. So they do tell you six must die. You learn, I think the only one that you learn the past from for, the only character you learn the past for is Father Malone. He says that his grandfather was a Father Malone before him
Mm-hmm.
and one of the six founders of the city, a town, whatever. Um, I wonder, or you can wonder, if any of the other five victims were also descendants of the original founders and related to them. But that it makes you wonder if the ghosts were targeting specific people who were related, um, why they were targeting Stevie and her son, but maybe because it's a small town, they probably lived there forever. Maybe they are also descendants and they only needed six. I mean, that's the way family trees work. They
Right.
all kind of branch out. So there's probably a bunch of descendants. They just need six of them. That's kind of what I thought, is maybe that's the case. And Stevie and her son are related and could have been sacrifices that fulfilled that. But they got the six they needed and they called it quits before they needed to take them or something like that.
It's weird. I didn't even think of anyone else being descendants. But that actually kind of makes more sense to me all of a sudden. God damn it.
Oh, good. I thought that you might have already thought of that.
No, for some reason I didn't. Huh. No, that would make sense. Now I want to rewatch it again and be like, okay, let's count everyone.
Yeah. Who's related? How are you related? You have to create little fan theories in your mind.
That would all. But if everyone is related to the six founding fathers, that family tree might look a little close at some point.
Yeah, probably. I think the furthest, so the three fishermen are fairly easy to say. Yeah, their families probably have fished there forever. Mrs. Kobritz, she's old like Father Malone. She probably is part of the crew. But Dan the weatherman, I don't know, he seems kind of different or adjacent to the events. Maybe it's because he's on the phone with Stevie the whole time, isn't actually involved or ever like. I don't get a good perspective of like where he is in relation to the town. Like, is he in the town? Is he near the
like
town?
his
Is he in the next
vicinity.
town? Yeah, can't really
Well,
place
you see the weather station, but I think it's actually like I think it's on the other side of town because Nick and Elizabeth go to the weather station, and then it's from the weather. No, they go to the weather station after they get Stevie's son.
I don't recall.
Oh God. Yeah, because that's when they see the fog coming at them, and she's trying to get the truck out of the little like mud hole that they accidentally parked in while the fog is starting to swarm them. Yeah. No. Yes.
Maybe.
I think so. Anyways, I think that's part of like, because Stevie's at the lighthouse and then she's talking to the weatherman on the other side of town. I think he's that way.
Okay.
I think that would make sense. But he does seem kind of like, I think he's the one that would be the argument towards it's just six random souls. Father Malone just happens to be a really great coincidence. And then he kind of takes on the responsibility of, I have to pay for my grandfather's sin. I'm the one that's going to have to do it, instead of like the firstborn son, which would have been his dad. But I don't know.
That's what happens when you wait around 100 years.
Right. You kind of like
extracting revenge right away. Silly ghosts.
But that also can kind of make you think, and obviously Carpenter never went into this kind of the depths that you were trying to find rabbit holes for me asking this, but
yeah,
you would almost wonder if the fog for older generations might have kind of showed up as well and kind of helped build up the. So maybe they show up not every 100 years, maybe it shows up every like 25 or whatever to take 6 souls. Who knows? Who knows why ghost pirates do what they do besides wanting their gold?
It could be like a dairy situation where they do this all the time, but nobody's really noticed.
Yeah, no one's ever noticed, or it's like a just kind of an unspoken thing that suddenly is now like a big deal. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
All we know is they target 6 people.
Right. And the main one, of course, Father Malone, and you mentioned his kind of original sin. I think that you definitely get a lot of the themes that Carpenter's going for with him at the end, sacrificing himself. But he doesn't do it like super obviously. He doesn't beat you over the head with it, which I appreciate. But the fact that they find the cross and realize that it's covered in gold, like the remaining gold from that original shipwreck, that the ghosts are after this, will give them this as an offering. The way that Father Malone like carries it, you expect him to like put it on his back and then go towards the ghosts and like try to offer himself as a sacrifice to forgive the sins of the town, like their original sin, like he's Jesus all of a sudden. He carries it like a fucking barrel instead, which is kind of funny. But it is a giant fucking gold cross, so you kind of get it. And I love like that sequence, mostly the visual of the fog flowing through the pews and the figures.
Dude, the church is kind of creepy in that shot. I'd probably shit myself if I walked out into like the auditorium part of an old church and it's like pitch black except for the glowing fog and there's 6 figures just standing there that you can't make any details out in.
Yeah.
I'd probably be like, well, new pants it is. Okay.
Yeah. And I love how you don't see any details. You just see their black silhouettes, and then the one comes forward, Grant, I think. Blake, and he calls to him, and the way Blake like pulls his sword, you because he's all silhouetted, you're like, is he bony? Is he like skeleton-y? He looks kind of skeleton-y, but he also could be full mass. It's hard to tell, and they look just so creepy and ethereal and like just the way they're like the clothing almost looks transparent, so you're like, is there a skeleton on the other side? What's going on with all this stuff? It's so unnerving, but you want to look away, but you can't look away. It's just such a cool thing. And then when his eyes start growing, you're like, oh, you're fucked.
There's several moments in this movie where you're like, no, that's it for you. You're fucked.
Yeah.
You're fucked. Dude.
Yeah, the red eyes are the best.
I think, when Father Malone pulls the giant gold cross, and he's hugging it, carrying it.
Yeah.
I was like, man, I'm not a religious dude, but that's kind of like, that's super sacrilegious right there, isn't it? Like, we're going to fashion a gold cross out of gold that we stole. So it's like bloody.
Murdered people.
We murdered people. We're going to fashion it into a solid gold cross, which if you know anything from like the Bible, like it reminded me of kind of like a golden calf kind of scenario of like, everything about this gold cross just seems so anti what the church or Father Malone stands for. So it's no wonder that I kind of feel like his sacrifice isn't just because I have to pay for the sins of my grandfather, but kind of like all of this is wrong. I've been preaching from the pulpit here. This whole place is built off of blood and murder, and it's all just been like
Yeah.
true sin. So I think he's just completely like, if I can sacrifice myself, it'll all be absolved, or like the town can start over from there. So I
Yeah.
get, I like Father Malone's side, like, or at least how I perceive it.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, that giant gold cross, I was like, man, that is, oof. I feel like that has a lot of connotation to it that is
It
not
does.
good.
Oh, it does for sure. Yeah, and I love the that sequence where they're in. You mentioned Janet Leigh's in this movie, and everybody knows her from Psycho
Yeah.
fame, but also as Jamie Lee Curtis's mom, real life mom. And they've only had two on-screen appearances together. Halloween H2O, I think, is the other
Yeah.
one, and so this would be their first in 1980. And so just knowing that and seeing them, it's not even like a big part or a big scene or a big focus of a scene, but Jamie Lee Curtis is like in the back, like wrestling with the window and the fog and the pirate trying to take her, and her mom, the mayor of the town, is like trying to keep her inside the
Yeah.
building and hold on to her and stuff and like save her. And I'm like, oh, that's sweet, your mom is saving you from these
Yeah,
ghouls. And
the one scene that they actually interact, and it's her mom trying to protect her. Yeah.
yeah, it's
Like
pretty cute.
that. That seems right. That seems right.
Yeah.
I think it was such a wise choice and an interesting choice to have them in the movie together, but then keep them separated
Hmm.
for the pretty much the entire film up until the church. And even at the
Yeah.
church, their interaction is, they don't talk, it's frantic.
Right.
And I think that's like, what a, I think it's an intelligent thing. And I saw an interview with Jamie Lee Curtis, well, two of them actually, about it. And she was like, I really liked that we weren't together in the film, because their careers, they didn't want to be hired as a pair. Like, you have to have these
Yeah.
two together all the time. They wanted, and I think that's one, that's awesome on Janet Leigh's part to let Jamie Lee Curtis have her own limelight and stay kind of separate from it. I think that's pretty
Yeah.
awesome. And then for Jamie Lee Curtis as well to not rely on
Hmm.
her mom. Uh, I think that's really cool. It is funny that they only did two on-screen appearances together, and H2O is the one, because that's the college one,
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
right? Yeah,
I
because
think that's right. Yeah.
Janet Leigh drives the psycho car
The California
in
one. Yeah.
H2O. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's right.
And that one they actually do like have dialogue together. Uh,
Hmm.
you can watch that one. It's not that good, but you can watch it.
It's a piece of a horror movie history.
It is. It is the two Scream Queens together. Well, actually, I guess Jamie Lee Curtis is the actual Scream Queen. She's the one they coined it for.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, they both are infamous together for sure.
But you brought up the pirates and never being able to see them. I
Yeah.
love that. And what's funny is I know there's no detail to them. I know
Hmm.
no matter how many times I watch it, I'm not going to see detail.
Hmm.
But I find myself, or have found myself, really like dead stare, just like I have concentrated so hard. Like, give me a
Hmm.
glimpse. There's got to be a glimpse. There's got to be something there. And there's not. The only one you see is the like side of one of their faces, and it's all green with maggots on it.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
This is a single gross and brilliant shot.
and you're
It's
like,
like
are they
color.
all going to be green and maggoty, or is it like just that one was?
Hmm.
And monster-esque films would tell you like they're all going to be different. They'll have some similarity, but they're all going to be
Yeah.
individual. So it's like, I really want to know what Blake looks like.
Yeah. Yeah, he's so cool. I mean, as cool as he is, but there's so much question, and it goes back to the simple is more thing that your mind fills in so
Oh
many
yeah.
details. You know, you feel like you know way more than you actually see.
Oh, in my head, they're just like rotted, dripping, like drowned
Yeah.
corpses that
As soon as you hear that they're not just pirate ghosts, but they're leprous pirate
yeah, it's
ghosts, like
like,
leprosy riddled pirate ghosts, you're like, that's gross, but also brilliant and awesome.
oh, there's toy versions of him.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's
So I
interesting.
guess that's
He looks
VR.
pretty fucking. He looks
He
sick.
looks
Are
pretty.
you looking at this action figure on Amazon
Yeah, dude.
for $27? I'm gonna have to get that. That's fucking cool. 32% off.
Hey, that's awesome.
Yeah, I don't know how official this is. It works for me. Works good enough.
It works for me. I
It has
imagine him
light
to
up
be
eyes.
super rotted and gross looking.
Add to cart.
Chrissy's gonna be like Jake.
It's like batteries included.
Oh,
You're selling me already.
his eyes light up?
Yeah, his eyes light up.
Fuck yeah, dude. Anyways,
There's also this toy. Did you see the Fog? The Fog action figure? It's Fog. Some Fog. Fully posable action figure.
that is amazing. Oh my
100% movie accurate, just like the real thing. It's like a tuft of fabric, like cotton, in a action figure cardboard case thing.
fucking awesome.
$40. It's sold out though. You have to make your own.
Who the fuck spent $40 on a piece of that's like like just buy the $2 fake snow, clump it up and
Yeah,
shape it. There you go.
that's what it's like.
Yeah, I don't have too much more to say. I just think like what a just a fantastic movie that I know had success. Like,
Yeah.
I think it would have been cool. I read a thing where when it came out, there were some theaters that were so on board with the marketing. Well, the marketing ended up costing 3 times as much as the actual production, which is
crazy.
nuts.
You don't see that today.
That is insane. But how fun would it have been in 1980 to walk into a theater that had the fog machines pumping and you're walking through the fog? Like, it's so on the nose.
It would have been an event.
Cheesy, but like
it gets you involved.
It gets you involved.
You're like living the movie.
I'm like, I read that and I immediately thought of like, you know, other examples of theaters just doing fun, cool things just for the cheesy promotion of the films. And I'm like, why don't more theaters do this? Yeah, we get the popcorn buckets and that's fun. You make everyone pay like $30 for a bucket that they're going to use that day, maybe one day, and then it's gone. My daughter and I have only done the special bucket like once or twice, I think. One broke and one is still in the cupboard. I don't but I'm like, that's what would be so much fun for theaters to do. Like, come to the even if you're not going to see that specific movie, just the experience of walking into a theater and it's like set up for some fun big hit.
Like, yeah, that's kind of the thing that I thought of as well, which is they're always trying to figure out people aren't going to the theaters as much. How do we get them into the theaters? It's like, do stuff like that, make it an event that is memorable,
make it a big deal again.
I think people care more about that than like some extra collective merch I can buy and forget I bought.
Right. Right, unless it's that Dune popcorn bucket. No one's ever memeable. That one.
I'm all for it. But yeah, that memorable event, I think, is a huge deal.
That is a huge deal. I think that hits the nail on the head. Is like people, you want to get people out of their homes to go to a film, like pick the big release. There's always the big release.
Yeah.
Deck your theater out and that stuff. I remember even going to the theater and like you'd walk in and the big release, there'd be stuff like ceiling hangers or something. There, you know, you had the fun stuff set up. People were in costumes. Like, let's bring this stuff back because that was
Good
fun.
times.
It was a good time. Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I was like, man, how fun would that have been to watch The Fog in the theater and just God.
Yeah.
God.
Yeah. That would have been sick. There's so many movies from like the 70s and 80s and even 90s that I was alive but not really old enough for even paying attention. I was like, I would love to have seen that in the theater and experienced it. Like you see like the lines around the block for the first Star Wars in
Right.
77 when you're like, that would have been so cool to
It
be
would have
there.
just been like amazing. Granted, we've had our fair share of movies where we're like,
Yeah, for
holy
sure.
crap, I can't believe I get to watch this on the big screen. That's awesome. It's
Yeah.
nothing against them, but there are movies like this to me, or for you and I, that are like, they hit that fun chord in us, that special spot where like, this is, I love it when we find the movies that are right up our alley with so many things where it just checks like damn near every box off of what we're looking for. It's just so awesome. I love this movie.
Yeah.
Absolutely
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah, I read an interesting thing. John Carpenter did an interview in the 90s in Fangoria magazine where he said that he wanted to make The Fog like an anthology series, and he would have The Fog as the movie in the 80s, and then there would be like another movie that's not like directly connected, but The Fog would be a thing that would like cause some supernatural event to happen in this other town, and that would have been very, very cool. And it just never really got it off the ground, never really progressed. And so instead they agreed in 2005 to let the remake happen. And we all know how well that went, I think.
I've never seen the remake.
I haven't either, but I know it has like a 3% on Rotten
Oh, I know
Tomatoes,
it's like one of the most hated remakes of all time. And I feel like if we ever get around to watching it, I just have this gut instinct that I am going to shred it, that I will be so mad at it.
So on our episode schedule right now for next Fog Day next year, April 21st, 2025, I have the Fog remake as our episode. So if we're all alive next year, maybe that's what we'll do. The Fog remake.
That'll be a painful one, I feel. But I don't have too much except just, if you've never watched this movie and you only listen to us talk about it, I mean, do yourself a favor, do John Carpenter and everyone involved with this movie, do them the favor. Watch it. It's so wonderful. It's so
I hope we
good.
made you want to watch it because it is so good.
It's so good. It's you know, for a simple ghost revenge story, it's unique. It's everything you're looking for, and man, sometimes you just can't beat the classics. It does so many things right that so many modern horror movies do very wrong. So
right, I think that's glaringly apparent that they just should take note and use it as a guide of what works. Do that with all John Carpenter stuff. But The Fog in particular, it seems like a movie that shouldn't work. That's too simple, too small. And it's interesting to hear that it almost didn't work, but to see what you have now and enjoy it, it works so
it's
good.
Fantastic. Awesome movie. So thank you, John Carpenter. We love it.
You know we love you, but we love you. Okay, next episode, we are talking about the movie business, giving it the business, if you know what I mean.
Whoa.
Well, maybe not all the way, but a little bit. We're talking about director's cuts, and for better or for worse, there are some director's cuts that make movies better, some director's cuts that make them worse. Talking about why director's cuts happen, some of our favorites, and just getting into it, getting deep into director's cuts.
Yeah, very interesting topic. Especially these days, I think the idea of a director's cut just it means some interesting things. So enjoy that conversation. It was
Yeah, it's hot on the heels with Rebel Moon Part 2,
yeah.
I think is coming out, and we're all waiting to hear when the director's cut's going to come out, because Zack Snyder's director's cuts are always better than his original movies, and I don't know why Netflix is even bothering releasing the real movie, or the theatrical, not even theatrical, the streaming version and not the director's cut version. But we get into it.
Yeah, yeah.
Ridley Scott's kind of in the same vein, so there's a lot to talk about there. So enjoy that next time. And I think that's it.
I think that's it, right? Yeah.
Yes, we love you and appreciate you, and we'll see you next time.
Do all the social media things. Make sure you're subscribed and following. We appreciate that and appreciate you. And stay tuned because we got fun stuff coming your way. So
much fun stuff.
Much fun
it's
stuff.
too much.
It's a
too
lot,
much.
actually. It's a lot.
All right. See you guys next
time.
time.
Bye, guys.